Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Welcome back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I am your host, Adam Cousins. And before we get on to today's show, I just want to shout out my good buddy, my third of my trio's partners, Andy Burrows, who is recovering from surgery on his mouth after an accident at the weekend. Andy, you missed. We want you back. We need you back on this show. We're struggling without you, bro. Well, we're not struggling without you, but just come back because we enjoy your company. Anyway, normally on the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast, we generally have a light-hearted discussion with our guests. The guest we got on today is slightly different because we're talking about a 6-year period in his career where he had everything in terms of wrestling belts anyway. He lost everything. And then he's kind of on the road to redemption, but there's been a few blocks in between that we want to get into, especially in regards to the NWA and one of their titles that he's looking to win. Well, that he will be winning in roughly 10 days' time. Barrett Brown, good afternoon, I think it is to you.
Yeah, you're right on time, man. Good afternoon and good evening to you. So thank you for having me on the story, man. I appreciate it.
No worries at all. It's great to listen. It's always great for me to talk. I love talking to a wrestler. You can call me a mark or whatever, but that's what I am. I do enjoy this type of things. But like I mentioned, Barrett, it's a bit more serious today. So we're going to start 12th of August, 2017. You win.
Yeah, absolutely. Dyersburg, Tennessee, small company. So this was at the time when the NWA had a lot of affiliates. This was right before the company was purchased by Billy Corgan. So in Dyersburg, Tennessee, I defeated a gentleman to become the NWA World's Junior Heavyweight Champion.
Mr. USA, right?
Yes. Yeah, Mr. USA. I won't mention his real name for some obvious reasons that we will get into here in just a little bit. But yes, I defeated Mr. USA to become the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion on August 12th of 2017.
An amazing accomplishment. And, you're only 29, so you're like my birthday's next week. So you're nearly 10 years my junior. I know I might not look it, but you are. But that's sort of 2017. So you're like early. What are you at that age? At 2017, you're really young at that point, right?
Yeah. I believe I was 23 when I won the championship, because my first match was in January of 2010. So I was about 7 years in when I won the championship. So if you think about the time frame, we have actually doubled the time of my career since I, technically lost the championship until the present day. Yeah. Until this opportunity that we're going to talk about later. So,
I mean, 23 years old to be the junior heavyweight champion of the NWA, and the prestige and the lineage and that company as a whole. I know you said it was before Billy brought it out, and it was Mid-South, was it? Kind of that kind of. There still must be a big bit of pride for you at that point, even at that young age, just because, as I say, the lineage, the title, the heritage of the NWA as well.
Absolutely, especially because a lot of the guys that brought me up in this industry were very old school guys. I live in Texas, and so we had world class here. We have all these guys that are cool, and the NWA and those championships. That lineage means so much here. And even my original trainer, we jokingly talked about how maybe one day he would be the world's heavyweight and I'd be the world junior heavyweight. And even it was talked about with Killer Tim Brooks, who helped bring me up. And just the fact that I was able to make that happen, it was a dream come true for me.
Yeah, as I say, at such a young age, did you feel, and I know it's a bit silly to say because we're going to go through your defense in a minute, was there a sense of did you feel more pressure at that point when you won that title? Was it like, okay, shit's on, kind of, I suppose?
I think once the adrenaline of the night finally wore down, the realization hit like, okay, well, now that I won the championship, now I've got to hold on to it. Yeah. And, I knew that it made some decently big news when I won the championship. And there was, all these guys on social media that, they had to comment like, I'm coming for the title, I'm coming for it. And it's like, and I wanted to be the fighting champion, the guy that would travel. I wanted to go to Japan, to Canada, Germany, to the UK, and defend it everywhere, and and bring that prestige of it being a world championship back because it had only been really defended kind of locally at the time,
Yeah.
but I wanted world travel champion.
No, that would have been interesting, actually. We'll touch on that.
Right.
First defense, I believe it's the week later, 19th. I've got Prince Mahal. I don't know if this is the word. I'm no good at pronunciations. Prince Mahale.
Prince Mahale, that is correct.
In Oklahoma,
yes,
right?
Oklahoma, that's right. That's correct. Yeah. And the funny thing about these defenses is when I won the championship, it was around the same time that Mr. Corgan purchased the company.
Okay.
And so because they were in such a limbo state, I could not really publicize my defenses until the day of the show. So I could not go on social media and talk about I'll be here defending the title. It was more of day of the show. They announced it live, but I could not publicize it. We would have posters made of my defenses, but then it would have to be like, wait, hold on, like let's take that down because we don't know what the future of the NWA has in store. So it was a very weird limbo point of time where, yes, I was defending the title against a decent amount of people, but I could not talk about it publicly.
It's kind of a weird situation because obviously when you have champions, you kind of you see it now that socially they're posting these pictures everywhere, and I'm on these shows defending, come and see me, I'm on these shows defending my title. And was there any concern even at that stage that you said they were kind of limbo and that you didn't know what was going on? Did you feel any concern even that early that something may be happening down that line?
It was a concern for me. So my point of contact at the time was the vice president, who at the time was David Lagana.
Yes.
And I knew that, something was going to happen. I wasn't sure either if the title would just be taken away. I wasn't sure if I would get to continue to defend it because there was talks of a potential Canadian tour at one point, but that also fell through. And then I made these defenses, even Chavo Guerrero, I believe that was an
Yes, Hot Springs.
Hot Springs, Arkansas. And then when the end of September, the decision was made that they were going to kind of get rid of all the affiliates and only focus on the world's heavyweight and Tim Storm whenever they rebranded and restarted the company. And so because technically when Mr. Corgan purchased the company, he purchased the titles as well, the main championships, which included mine. And so I understood, like, I try to be a very professional person. I try to do business the correct way. And so, I'll be honest. I had tears in my eyes driving to the UPS store to ship off the title, but I did business the correct way. And when they asked me on September 26th, 2017, about a month and a half after I won it, I had to go ship off the title that was taken from me. And that was the last time that I saw it.
How did that get communicated to you that, you had a handful of defenses. You mentioned Chavo was the last one, which was DQ. You had there was a no contest with Mr. Nasty, I believe. And then there was Chandler Hopkins before that. So you had another match. You had Bedford, Texas was Chandler. You had Mr. Nasty in Tulsa. We mentioned Chavo. And then 10 days later, you're returning the belt. Was it a conversation? Was it a text? Was it an email? How was that presented to you?
I will tell you that it was a phone call. It was a phone call with Mr. Lagana. It wasn't just a text message, thank goodness, because that would have been a whole different, like that. There's level of respect there, but it was a phone call conversation. And now here's something that a lot of people really don't understand about me sending the championship back. So I sent the title back to Mr. Lagana, and a couple of days later when he received the championship, I got another phone call. And he basically said, I want to check in with you, make sure you're good. He said, hey, I have a question for you. He said, so the title that you sent me is the one that you received that night in Dyersburg. I said, 100%. I said, I have videos, pictures, everything from that night. And he said, great. I need you to send me every picture you have, the video of the match, and go get a statement notarized because the guy that you beat still has the real title. He gave you a fake.
Whoa.
So that's why I'm not mentioning Mr. USA's real name, because I don't want to publicize or give him any notoriety, because apparently he spited the company and the former president so much that he never brought the real title to Dyersburg, and he handed me a fake championship. And so if you think about it, up to that point, my life's work, when I held the title physically, I never held the real physical title. And the next day, after I sent everything to the company, I got the phone call that due to what I sent, they were able to get proof to the police. And there's video footage on his phone of them getting the real championship back because of what I sent. And when he went live, I believe on Facebook that evening, just to prove to me that he had it, you could see it on the background on his bed. He had the real championship that I never got to hold.
Wow. So even though you were the champion, you defended this title 5 times, you never actually held the legitimate world title.
I had to make a fake rip-off championship legitimate for about a month and a half.
How does that, because obviously even a promoter, for argument, I'm not a wrestling promoter, I'm just a podcaster, but even from a promoter standpoint, did you think that kind of devalues them? Because they're saying, I know they couldn't announce it to the day and all that sort of stuff, but in their mind, are they thinking, what's this guy doing then?
I mean, I would say so. And at the same time, I think it was more of just the shock factor, because for a while I kept that secret. Not many people know about that. And I think that's the big point of this. And, you know, because of what I did for them, because I helped them get the real championship back, like in reality, that kind of helped avoid what could have been a lawsuit. I mean, that he stole Billy Corgan's property. So after that, you know, we went on and I was told that I'll be on board going forward. And so we went on to NWA 70, where I defeated Laredo Kid in that huge event, phenomenal event that they had. And then after that, I asked the question because it was on all of my social media platforms. In my bios, it said that I was still the current World Junior Heavyweight Champion. And so I asked them, I said, hey, do I need to take this down? Like, do I need to not publicize that I'm the champion? And here is the promise that was broken, because I was told, number one, that if the title was retired officially, I'd be the final ever, which to me, I'm like, man, that's a pretty cool accolade to have.
Yeah.
But then I was told, if the championship is brought back, I would be the current reigning and defending NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion. And then you fast forward about 5 years, and they announce a tournament to crown a new champion. And I'm checking every file that I got, and I'm never invited to that tournament.
We were trying to segue quite nice, because obviously there was like the end, I think it was the 30th, where it was deactivated.
Right.
We'll just talk about that period of time between the deactivation and the reactivation. You went on to you still went and done some amazing things in wrestling in that period of time. I mean, the VIP champion. I mean, you took on some of the great. I mean, you look at someone like Austin Theory was one of the names that I looked at, and I was like, wow, now he's really kicking it in WWE, and he's obviously one of their mega stars now in WWE. He's rightfully so. Ricky Starks, another one. You was a freeway between you, him, and Homicide. Again, Ricky Starks now, AEW, massive star, doing great things, coming over here, 70-odd thousand seats sold in a couple of months. You know,
and Homicide won that tournament.
And Homicide, I was about to get. Homicide ended up winning the title on the 31st of January 2020, again in Houghton, Texas. Is it Houghton? Sorry if I'm pronouncing these things wrong. I'm no good.
Houghton City, but yeah, I mean, you're good. You're good.
Excellent. You also had you had 2 kind of runs in WWE, didn't you? Like an enhancement kind of talent. One was Braun Strowman in 2015, and then you come back with Greg James September 17th, 2018, AOP on Raw. It was just an one of those squash matches, what they would say.
Right, definitely.
Hey, you're there, right? And
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, even after that, really when things picked up for me was when I started going out to the New Japan Pro Wrestling Dojo in Los Angeles under Katsuyori Shibata, and going out there, I think, man, I went out there like 15 times. It was to the point to where I was just invited to come stay at the house with those guys. Wow. I was like, for a period of time, I was the unofficial 5th young lion there. But I never relocated or went and became a young lion, because Shibata-san told me, look, you already have 10 years of experience. Like, I'm not going to restart you. Yeah. Just keep coming, and then we'll bring you in as you are. And then that is how ultimately in 2020 during the pandemic, I got the phone call from Rocky Romero to come be a part of New Japan Strong.
Yeah, and again, a massive career highlight going over there. And Stray Dogs, right? Is that
Stray Dog Army? Yes, sir.
That's it. Stray Dog Army. Pandemic Japan.
Yes.
What was that? I mean, obviously over here, we couldn't even go out and take a piss very much. We had to literally, it was in, boom. That was it. And what's it like over there?
So I will say, like, so far, I have not actually physically been to Japan.
Gotcha.
Everything that I did in the States, but to film these episodes for New Japan Strong and to wrestle for a company like New Japan Pro Wrestling in front of just a commentary team, other wrestlers, and a camera crew with no energy from a crowd.
Yeah.
Really shows you how good you actually are as a professional wrestler, because that is very hard to do, because you have to create that emotion. You can't reciprocate it from other people. It has to be made yourself, and that's very hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, even when we obviously WWE kept putting on their weekly products, and they were doing Thunderdomes, and they were having they started off with I think the NXT guys were just hanging around the ring at that point and masks on, and it must be. Is it kind of when you walk out of an arena and it is silent, like you as you say, you walk out off the adrenaline, you feed off of the crowd, whether they're cheering, booing, or whatever, but you feed off of that. To come to nothing must be a massive sea change.
You have to. What I had to do was I had to visualize it as if there was a crowd there and kind of channel it into that camera when I walked out. I just had to try to say I'm going to connect with people somehow, and I have to do it through that camera. And I just tried to create my own energy, and I feel like I did it decently. And eventually, we carried it into 2021 when they finally brought the American fans back at Resurgence.
Yeah, thank Christ for that. When we were allowed back into these things, I mean, it was.
I can't express like how fortunate I was, because myself and the Straight Out Army, we had a 6-man tag match as the pre-show of Resurgence, but technically we were the first New Japan Pro Wrestling show with American fans back after the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then days later we film, and I'm in the ring with Hiroshi Tanahashi. I can't express like what that meant to me.
Yeah. That must have been an amazing. I mean, legends like that, Tanahashi, and as I said, even Homicide. I mean, as Homicide's a legend in the game anyway. It doesn't really matter where you go. Just touching on quickly with regard, we mentioned Austin Theory and Ricky Starks before, but just want to go back to, did you see then the potential? What you kind of, did you know that these guys were destined for great things, or was it a slightly different version of an Austin Theory or a Ricky Starks?
Man, I met Ricky Starks, I think in his first year. I was a couple of years in when I met Ricky, and I just thought to myself, like, this guy has an unreal amount of charisma about him. Like, he just has something special. And anytime that I got to wrestle with that dude, I've wrestled him, I think 4 or 5 times. And every time I was like, no, this guy, it's going to be a travesty if he's on the indies like much longer. And I knew that he belonged on TV. And I'm glad that my assumption was right. And Austin Theory, I was like, man, this dude just looks like a stud. I mean, just his presence alone, he's going to make it one day. And I'm glad that my assumptions were correct.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about. I mean, Starks has got amazing charisma. I mean, again, I'm not a talent scout. I just watch it on the TV, and I review it. But you can just know, and you say Austin Theory is an absolute stud. Okay, now let's get into the kind of serious bit. 20th of March 2022, they reactivate the title, and as you said, a tournament is begun, or they're going to do a tournament for this. And you're searching, you're checking your phones, you're checking your emails, you remember the promise that they sent you, and nothing happens.
There's nothing.
What is going through your mind? Because as you said, you've left it. Okay, you had the issue. It wasn't the real title. Doesn't matter. They said to you, if it gets reactivated, you are the champion.
Right.
But you're not.
I cannot express just like it was almost every negative emotion you could imagine rolled into one. And I'm not a very vocal person negatively. Like, I try to keep my social media platforms clean, and I do my best to be a professional. And, I bit my tongue and I was like, I'm just going to see what happens. I want to see this play out. And I will tell you that I am tremendously glad that Homicide was the one that won it, because I respect that man so much. And I wish I could have fought him for it, because I do have a win over him in that triple threat with him and Ricky Starks.
You do.
He's got one over me as well, but I wish I could have fought him for it. But just the shock, the disappointment, the heartbreak, the upset. I tell people all the time that this industry, it can be the most rewarding, but it can be the most heartbreaking. And that was one of the lowest points that I have ever had, when I was like, wow, they really are going to crown a new champion. And people had mentioned me multiple times to the company, but it was almost as if they ignored everything that was mentioned about me up until recently.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. Did you kind of even feel like on the day of the tournament, like you're going to get things saying you're going to come back and you're going to with a title, and kind of like, you remember the CM Punk Cena thing when they, like that sort of.
There were, dude, I had so many people that day, the day of the tournament, that my inbox was flooded. Like, you're going to be there. Like, everyone was like, Barrett's showing up. He's showing up. He's doing something there. And I was like, I wish that was true. Like, you can tune in and watch, but I'm not there. Yeah. And sure enough, I made an appearance. The last time that I was seen on the NWA programming was NWA 70 against Laredo Kid.
Wow, that's crazy. Because even when they won it, they might not have done it then. They could have done it the next week. They could have had, as I said, that whole ending of a TV program with one champion holding up one title, and the one you said they've done it with Cena and Punk and people like that. Captivating TV, even that, but it didn't happen. Have you then got, when you're wrestling after that point, is there any more sort of a point to prove, or is there more like, I've got more of a chip on my shoulder, or something along those, going forward after that point? Did you think, you know what, F them, I'm gonna go out and
naturally, and it kind of, it segued into one of the most important matches that I've ever had in my entire career, because I was actually, soon after that, I had to go to a hotel to stay for a New Japan Strong taping. And as I was in that hotel room, the promoter of VIP Wrestling, where this match is going to happen, he contacted me. He said, hey, WrestleMania weekend, we're doing a Midnight After Mania show. He said, I want to bring in a big New Japan talent for you. He said, who do you want? And I said, who can we get? And ultimately, we got Minoru Suzuki. Wow. And I said, if there's one guy that I can prove to the world who I am, my intensity, that I can hang with the best and the most intense, I said, give me Minoru Suzuki. And I think that match with Suzuki, which to me is still the best match I've ever had in my career, that was the moment whenever everyone kind of was like, oh shit, he's not playing around. Like, he means business. And so I took that emotion of how I felt with the tournament being announced without my involvement into that match. And I have been able to channel it ever since in all my performances. And since then, I've heard it for the last decade, but now it's been a major thing where people are like, why are you still on the independent circuit? And I said, well, as long as I'm still here, I'm going to still give these people their money's worth. And I'm going to turn heads and prove to the world who I am. And it's like full circle that just so happens where this opportunity would present itself against Mr. Kerry Morton.
Indeed. We'll get into that very shortly. Suzuki, though. I see him, the first time I saw him, AEW, I think. I can't remember, because obviously we don't get New Japan. I think we can get it via some streaming site, but we don't get it weekly on TV over here in the
right.
UK. I think he come out, it was Moxley, I think. And I just look, even though he's obviously older now than obviously when he was, it was just like, this guy looks like he's going to beat the living snot out of you. He's got that look about him. And when you did you get that when you wrestled him? Was it just like, was it exactly how you expected him to work in terms of, he looks like a menacing guy that's going to chop the hell out of you?
I've been in the ring with Braun Strowman, and I was not as I was with Minoru Suzuki. I mean, if there was literally a Grim Reaper in this business, it's Minoru Suzuki. But it was a moment that I had to welcome, because, again, all that emotion that I had a point to prove. And even though that match, I lost that night to Minoru Suzuki, but everyone said that even in loss, it was the biggest victory that I've ever had, because I proved a lot that night, and it's what I needed. And I think it was kind of the catalyst to what would eventually happen in my career.
Yeah, I mean, I think people can say losses can make the person just as much as wins can, right? In wrestling, you know. Okay, 12th of November last year was the night that Kerry Morton, wins the championship, junior heavyweight championship. Now we all know lineage of his father and we'll move up to now, kind of closure for you, the closure on the 23rd. You got your opportunity. Now you get your opportunity. Kerry Morton versus Barrett Brown, VIP Wrestling, 23rd of June. When you win that, what's next?
I think what a lot of people overlook, and the reason that they overlook me, is because we do not mention Colby Carino in this at all, because Colby is the current contender.
Yes.
For the title. People think that just because he's not mentioned, that automatically I'm overlooked. And the thing is if you think about the Morton lineage, I mean, I'm not going to downplay Kerry. He's very good at this. He is father's son. He is a deserving champion, but he is a lineage, a legacy, and a huge last name in this industry, just like Colby. Colby is a phenomenal talent. He's a lineage, a legacy, and the last name Carino. But when you compare that, like, who am I? You know, who is Barrett Brown? I'm not a lineage. I don't have a legacy or a last name with weight in this industry. But my job on the 23rd is not just to win back my championship. It's not just to take it to Killer Tim Brooks' grave and celebrate with him. I'm going to go in with the intent of proving that a last name with the Mortons and the Carinos, maybe I'll take my baby to the NWA and defend it against Colby. But my job is to prove to the NWA and to everybody that a last name does not carry as much weight as hard work and raw by God talent. And that's what I'm going to prove on the 23rd of June.
As we move closer, the anticipation is obviously getting big. We're 9-10 days from it now. What's that like for you?
I can visualize, and I'm a very visual person. I don't just, like, when I close my eyes, I don't just visualize words or phrases. I see pictures, and I try to visualize every outcome possible in any scenario. And it's been that way my entire life, even outside of wrestling. This is the first time that I can tell you that I cannot visualize anything else other than walking out with that championship. It means too much to me. And I think that Kerry kind of downplays that, and that's going to be his detriment. I have way too much to prove, way too much to lose. And I did not pass that torch to him. And if he wants it, he's going to be in for a hell of a fight. It doesn't matter what his last name is. I'm going to prove who I am.
Did you feel slightly aggrieved that the match was announced anyway? It has been announced. The NWA not even put it out there. They've just sort of installed Kobe as the #1 contender, and we're all, and as you kind of mentioned, that kind of downplays you in an extent because they're not mentioned. Is that a kind of an agreement? Because we see it all the time on these, even like I said, WWE, they'll announce a title match for 3 weeks later, like a big match, and then they'll say, "Oh, next week someone," and you kind of know, well,
right,
just down
like
here.
One of those house show defenses. Whenever you like, oh well, he's got to win because he's got to go fight this guy next.
Yeah,
I tell people is like, how do you know that I haven't signed a contract with NWA?
Yeah.
How do you know I've been talking? How do you know that this isn't part of a bigger plan? Like, maybe I will take the title and go and defend it against Colby. Like, no one really knows. And when I say that, people are like, well, have you? I was like, I guess we'll find out on the 23rd. And now there's doubt because maybe I have. Maybe, I mean, they follow me on Twitter. They've been retweeting my stuff. They don't do that for guys that aren't signed.
No.
The last time that they've done that, take that into consideration. So those that are listening, you don't know. I might be signed right now. I just may not be ready to tell the world about it yet.
Indeed, and that is a very truthful fact. We're going to start wrapping things up, Barrett, with this. Obviously, as we said, 23rd VIP match with Kerry. In terms of future goals, and we will not forget about the match, forget about winning the title. I know it's on your mind, and that's what you do.
Right.
We want to end it like I normally would end it with a guest, and it's like, what are your future goals in wrestling, and what do you want to accomplish besides reclaiming that gold that you've never lost and you're technically still the champion in a lot of ways, but apart from that, what is left for you?
My ultimate goal is to travel the world doing this and to make a comfortable living and to have fun. I think that's why this closure means so much. My ultimate goal is to go to Japan. I want to wrestle in Korakuen Hall. I want to get that damn red Ribera Steakhouse jacket and wear it around. I want to eventually maybe go to the Tokyo Dome and wrestle for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship as well. I want to take this as far as I can, and I want to, I have end goals, but I think the main thing for me is trying to enjoy the journey while I can, while I'm healthy, while I'm able, and while I still have as deep of a burning passion for this as I do. I'm going to ride it till the wheels fall off, man.
I think that's my goal. That is the best way to wrap this up now. Barrett, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for taking your time. We will keep an eye out on the 23rd. Please come back and have another conversation, more of a general light-hearted conversation that we'd have in the future. But guys, this has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I have been Adam Cousins with my guest, Barrett Bryant. Until next time, guys, stay safe and we'll see you soon.